time.
In 1914, at the age of 20, Mr. Butinsky was able to buy an express delivery route serving clothing manufacturers on the Lower East Side. By the end of 1914, he had expanded to 4 employees, 2 wagons, and bought his first truck. The company continued to specialize in serving the clothing industry. During the Depression years, Butinsky and a brother bought the Pennsylvania-based Branch Motor Express Company and merged it into their own operation. Incidentally, Meyer J. Butinsky became the chairman of Branch Industries, Inc., and remained active in the company until his death at the age of 88. The Pennsylvania-based Branch Motor Express got its start as Branch Storage Company. In the 1920s, Eugene Hendricks was the owner of the company. Branch Storage started out as an automobile dealership and a repair garage. By October of 1923, the garage and dealership were sold and moved elsewhere, and Branch Storage went into the freight business. It did not take long for the company to make its mark in moving freight. Branch Storage Company operated a truck freight service between Poughkeepsie and New York City. As early as 1924, Branch Storage Company was already a small interstate trucking company, operating between Pennsylvania and New York. The areas of the southeast Pennsylvania had numerous industrial factories catering to the clothing manufacturers of New York City. Fabric would be transported from New York to the plants in Pennsylvania, where cutting and sewing operations were done, and then the finished product was taken back to New York City for further assembly into finished clothing. In December of 1924, the company applied for an intra-state certificate of authority with the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission to operate as a motor freight common carrier. In 1928, Meyer J. Butinsky and several associates bought Branch Storage Company with 20 trucks in the fleet. Meyer Butinsky became president of the firm in 1931. Then, in 1932, Branch sought additional intrastate authority in Pennsylvania. Also, in 1932, Branch established a depot in Bangor, Pennsylvania, and a year later, Eugene Hendricks moved to Allentown to establish a terminal there for Branch. In the early years, Branch grew by building its business without acquisitions or expanding beyond their territory. This attitude changed with the introduction of the ICC. The Interstate Commerce Commission, or ICC, was established by Congress in 1935. It was designed to regulate trucks and trucking routes, along with trucking mergers and acquisitions. On February 12, 1945, the ICC granted Branch Motor Express an amended certificate to transport general commodities over specified routes between named points in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and the District of Columbia. Branch had also filed an application with the ICC to operate as a contract carrier. But in May 1941, that application was denied as operations were found to be that of a common carrier. By 1940, the company had grown to 245 employees, 71 trucks and tractors, and had assets of $280,000. Headquarters for the firm was now in New York City. It was during this period that Transportation Company of New York was assembling a plan to combine ownership of many small and regional trucking companies along the East Coast. Branch was one of the companies that were planned for acquisition. The plan to take over a vast number of common carriers in 1940 was not acceptable to the Interstate Commerce Commission, who declined the application. This allowed Branch to remain an independent company. Among the other trucking companies involved in the plan were the same ones that would merge just a few years later to become Associated Transport, Inc. After the war ended, a tremendous growth era for common carriers was about to emerge as companies like Branch wanted to serve larger areas. But there was a problem with expansion, since the only way to expand would be to get the ICC to go along with a merger or purchase of another trucking company. For example, Murdoch and Hatch Motor Transport, Inc., M&H, was a money-losing carrier that had already been approved by the ICC to be purchased by AB&C Motor Transportation Company, Inc. M&H had been under financial distress as far back as 1953 from a labor dispute and a disastrous flood in New England in 1955. AB&C had leased M&H for about 19 months between November 1955 and June 1957. The ICC had approved the purchase in October 1956, but AB&C was declared bankrupt in December 1956, and since the purchase with the troubled carrier was never consummated, the trustees terminated the lease operations. M&H immediately resumed service, but had trouble getting up and running again. So, with the blessings of the ICC, Branch assumed temporary control on August 19, 1957. As of September 30th, 1957, Branch was in sound financial condition, and with a strong financial footing, Branch could pull this acquisition off and save the struggling M&H. Branch started another merger in 1960, this time with a carrier to give much-needed routes to the growing southern states. On October 26, 1960, Branch made an application with the ICC to control Morgan Trucking Company of Greensboro, North Carolina, and the ICC granted temporary control on November 17th. Along with Morgan was Equipment Leasing Company and Carrier Service Company. The leasing company owned 2 trucks, 22 tractors, and 66 trailers that were leased to Morgan, and Carrier Service maintained the fleet. Once word got out about Branch wanting to extend operations to the south, many carriers protested the application. Among those carriers were Akers Motor Lines, Carolina Freight Carriers, and Johnson Motor Lines. All of these carriers had been in direct competition with Morgan Trucking Company. When the ICC hearing was held to consider the Branch-Morgan merger, many more carriers with operations up and down the eastern seaboard protested the application. The ICC approved the Morgan Trucking Company acquisition, despite all the protests. After that, all future mergers for Branch were westward into the Great Lakes and Midwest regions. Eventually, Branch became one of the top 25 common carriers in the country. In 1969, Branch acquired Middle Atlantic Transportation Company, Inc. This acquisition gave Branch entry into the Midwest. Next, Branch became a subsidiary of Branch Industries, Inc., which sold shares of common stock to the public and was traded on the American Stock Exchange under the symbol BII. During the 1970s, Branch continued to grow and rise into a major trucking company. Motor Freight Corporation of Terre Haute, Indiana, was purchased and enabled Branch to continue the westward expansion. The last big company Branch acquired was Great Lakes Express of Saginaw, Michigan. Between 1973 and 1976, Branch grew its fleet to 3,081 pieces of equipment, which included 608 line haul tractors, 676 city trucks and tractors, and 1,797 line haul trailers. During the 1970s, the government had been proposing changes to the trucking industry in the form of deregulation. Trucking companies had long been fearing the changes that were proposed. The operating rights were considered an asset item on their balance sheets, even though those rights were listed as intangible assets, which means it's just a piece of paper and not trucks or trailers that can be sold. Still, that piece of paper was valuable. President Jimmy Carter's Motor Carrier Act of 1980 took effect on July 1 of that year and turned the trucking industry of the past into unfamiliar ways of doing business. Having to travel between cities on certain routes was a thing of the past, as was the Certificate of Operating Authorities, which had just become worthless. A trucking company could serve any area they wanted to, travel whichever highways they wanted, and entire companies hauling truckload freight sprang up. One by one, the large, less than truckload carriers could not compete against the new truckload companies. The new companies did not require vast numbers of terminals to pick up and deliver local freight like the current trucking system did. The 1980 Motor Carrier Act affected Branch very hard, just like it did every other LTL carrier. The value of the operating certificates had to be written off, which caused the former profitable companies to become money-losing companies. This also caused a problem with loan covenants, with banks holding equipment loans and terminal mortgages. To combat the deregulation, many large trucking companies tried to survive by rapidly expanding to cover larger geographic areas of the country. Some attempted to combine themselves into much larger money losers. Branch did neither. They just tried to survive the best they could with giving the customer service the company was known for. Unfortunately, the banks called their loans to be paid and Branch could not pay. In August 1984, with assets of $52.3 million and liabilities of $48.5 million, Branch Motor Express shut down. Terminals closed and the employees all lost their jobs. It was the end of a long line for a company with a long history. But who cares about all of that? You are here for a review of a DCP model, right? Well, I care. And I think as a collector, you should too. Because without knowing about the company, what is the point in having the model? So that is why I do my videos with the histories as well as the product review. And now, for the DCP by First Gear Fallen Flag Series Ford L9000 with dry van for Branch Motor Express. And here we go, guys. This is the DCP by First Gear Fallen Flag Series Ford L9000 with 40-foot vintage dry van trailer for Branch Motor Express.
Underneath, you can see it is item number 60-1281, and you can see the Ford official licensing mark. And there it is out of the package. I'm not going to go into excruciating detail on this one because I'm really short on time. I talk so much about Branch, but in the next video, so make sure you subscribe, I talk in great detail about this truck, and the trailer I've talked about before, but I'll talk about the truck in the next video. So I'll just hit on some key points right here. Like the trailer. Look at those great big huge letters for Branch on the side. They're green tampos with black outlines. Really nice. It has a drive safely placard there and another place for a placard. Upside, it also has the roof clearance lights. Rides on 5-spoke Dayton wheels and nice soft rubber tire. Underneath, the same dry van with the screw down type landing gear and the spare tire carrier. On the back, it says Branch in the green letters with the black outline on a white banner. Then it has a trailer number. Also, it has another drive safely placard. Brake lights are tampoed and rear mud flaps as well. Doors do open to show off the detailed dry van interior, which is all wood. It's simulated wood. Over here on the curb side, same as on the driver's side. On the front here, it says Branch on the white background with the trailer number and then another drive safely placard, and then it's got the hookups for your electric lines. And here is the Ford L9000 tractor for Branch Motor Express. You can see the Branch Motor Express on the door with some other company numbers for, the different ICCs and states. It's in a two-tone green, a dark green with a light green panel and white outline on it. It has the 5-spoke Dayton wheels with green spokes and silver rims and silver center caps. Fuel tanks frame is all painted in green. Underneath, everything you'd expect. Positionable steering, not true steering, positionable. Brown engine, and then drive shafts, differentials, nice wheels, nice tires, all the stuff you'd expect. Up high, it's a fairly short chassis, and you can see it has the 5th wheel, which for that trailer, and then under the hood, it has a nice diesel engine with the Ford intake over here where Ford liked to put it. Up front, you can see they also use the air dam. They put the big airfoil up on the roof. It has Branch in the green letters and then the white outline on the big green airfoil. Dual air horns over on the driver's side. Mirrors are chrome plated. Grille is chrome plated, and then it has Ford tampoed in letters on the top, showing this is the early 9000. Later ones had the Ford oval. And then you have individual jewel style headlights and truck number right there on each fender. Driving lights in the bumper, and the bumper is painted green. Also up on both fenders, you have your turn signals. Ford had its air intake right here on the side, which was really unique for the Ford 9000. And I think it literally looks sharp, but it's on the passenger side. Hood latch tampoed, door there. Then a single exhaust here on the passenger side, which was so typical of these trucks. Back, you have your mud flaps and your brake lights. Now let's go on and hitch him up. And that is the Ford L9000 day cab pulling a 40-foot vintage dry van trailer for Branch Motor Express. It's a member of the DCP by First Gear Fallen Flag series. A 1/64 scale die-cast metal tractor trailer model.
I still have a few of these Ford L9000s with dry vans for Branch Motor Express available on my website, dcptrucks.com. There is a link to them while they last. Once they are gone, the link will disappear. However, I still have something else for you. It's the updated version of my DCP by First Gear's Fallen Flag Series checklist. That checklist includes the entire Fallen Flags released and announced to date. Grab it with the link below and check back often for future updates. Thank you for watching. I am Logan, the 64 the Gear Jammer Skeele, and next week will be another Fallen Flag Series truck review. So make sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so that you don't miss it.